The story begins with an unmotivated 26-year-old named Satoru Higanbana, who unexpectedly obtains a powerful weapon known as Auto Skill. This unique ability protects its user by automatically striking approaching enemies, proving invaluable during intense monster battles. He currently spends his days immersed in online games. Empty noodle cups and trash litter his room, and he completely lacks the motivation to do anything else. 2 weeks prior, he works at a demanding IT company where extreme overtime is normal. Despite the painful conditions, he manages to endure the workload alongside Yamada. Noticing that he is reaching his absolute breaking point, he attempts to offer encouragement. He urges him to push through the final deadline so they can celebrate with drinks later. He forces a smile and agrees to try. A few days later, devastating news arrives at the office. Yamada has suddenly passed away. Consumed by guilt, he constantly replays their final interaction, blaming himself for saying the wrong things and failing to recognize the danger. Having lost all hope, he quits his job entirely. He drains his savings and isolates himself from the world. Back in the present, gaming serves as his only escape from reality. He notices an unfamiliar item in his game inventory called the Book of Reincarnation. Assuming it is a glitch, he attempts to delete it to avoid an error but accidentally selects the execute option instead. Instantly, he vanishes from his messy room. He awakens sitting on a pathway in a strange garden, staring up at a massive, unfamiliar house. He questions if he is dreaming or if he has met the exact same fate as his late colleague. His frantic thoughts are interrupted by a welcoming voice. A beautiful woman appears, introducing herself as Messiah, a goddess. She offers to grant him a single ability for his new life. Confused by his bizarre surroundings and her sudden offer, he simply asks her to recommend something. Shocked by his passive response, she notes that most people eagerly demand one-hit combat abilities or infinite wealth. Observing his exhausted expression and apparent lack of fighting experience, she decides to grant him an auto skill. He flatly defends his natural resting face, but she ignores the complaint, finalizes the contract, and initiates a teleportation. As he fades away, he wonders how she even knows his name. He suddenly finds himself sitting against a tree in a level 50 grassland field. Assuming this is an incredibly vivid dream or a video game reincarnation, he tries to process the hectic situation. To his surprise, Messiah is right beside him. She suddenly wakes up in a panic, frantically shouting that she has been attacked. Utterly baffled, he asks what she is talking about. She quickly distances herself, scolding him and explaining that he was brought to this world to fulfill a specific role, not to assault her. Annoyed by the bizarre accusation, he strongly denies doing anything. He guesses that his supposed role involves defeating monsters or completing quests, just like the video games he used to play. Declaring the entire ordeal to be a massive pain, he expresses his desire to simply go to sleep, leaving her completely exasperated with his lazy attitude. Their interaction is cut short by a growling boar monster. He instantly recognizes the beast from his gaming days as a Gullinbursty, a notoriously violent creature that blindly charges until it dies. She confidently rushes toward the monster to handle it. He momentarily hesitates to help, still paralyzed by his apathy and the lingering trauma of his colleague's death. Suddenly, his body moves entirely on its own. An interface notification announces the activation of auto skill, and he instantly intercepts the charging beast. Without any conscious effort, he unleashes a combination of fire and water elemental attacks, specifically purgatory and hidden crevices, launching the creature far away and defeating it in a single blow. She beams with joy at his display of power, while he simply marvels at the effortless, automated combat. However, the sudden exertion immediately takes its toll, and he collapses. As he loses consciousness, he feels a profound sense of peace, finally able to rest deeply for the first time in weeks. She quickly catches him, resulting in him sleeping peacefully on her lap. Realizing they need proper shelter, she utilizes a construction skill, summoning tiny, fairy-like versions of herself to rapidly build a sturdy hut. He eventually regains consciousness in a comfortable bed. Sitting nearby, she explains that the sheer exhaustion of using his new ability for the first time caused him to pass out. Recalling the terrifying moment he reflexively jumped in front of the beast, he asks if he managed to keep her safe. Before she can even respond, his body begins to glow, and a system notification announces that he has leveled up. Shocked by the sudden glow emanating from his body, he questions what is happening. Messiah happily confirms that he has leveled up. Finally realizing that this is not a dream but reality, he accepts that he was brought to this new world for a specific purpose. He asks her about her true identity and his actual role in this world. She reiterates her divine status, explaining that she cannot reveal his purpose just yet. However, she promises they will find clues in the iron town of Jarvis, their current destination. When she teasingly reminds him of his earlier complaints about having a role, He admits that possessing the power to actually save someone has finally sparked his interest. She smiles and expresses her genuine gratitude, surprised that he managed to save her despite his extreme laziness and lack of combat knowledge. Her sincere thanks cause him to blush, and he reflects on how long it has been since someone showed him such genuine appreciation. When he asks how they plan to reach Jarvis, she casually mentions that they are already on their way. Utterly confused, he suddenly feels the hut shifting. He looks outside and is shocked to see a group of older men carrying the entire structure on their shoulders. She explains that this bizarre transportation method is also a result of his auto skill, which is simultaneously defeating slimes along the path. Amazed by the convenience, he watches the journey unfold. Smiling, she promises to guide the way until the day this incredibly lazy gamer eventually saves the world. The auto skill operates by detecting enemies within a 5-meter radius and automatically activating the most effective magic against them. In his old video games, this was a convenient mode used by players away from their keyboards to safely farm experience points or rare items. In this new reality, it functions identically, possessing incredibly powerful initial magic. Additionally, he has access to a glowing system board that only he can see. Upon waking from his rest, he checks the system board and discovers he has already reached level 40. This milestone usually takes an entire week of continuous grinding to achieve, yet he accomplishes it in just a few hours while sleeping. He remains somewhat unimpressed by the rapid progression, feeling that it lacks a true sense of achievement. Over dinner, Messiah serves him a meal, noting that he must be starving from continuously using his abilities in his sleep. He notices she seems to know the exact role he is meant to play in this world, though she still refuses to reveal it. The food she serves is completely pitch black. Despite its unappetizing appearance, he finds it surprisingly delicious. Reflecting on her mysterious construction skills and cooking, he concludes she is not a bad person and decides to slowly uncover her secrets during their journey. Their first destination is Jarvis. He remembers it from his games as a bustling, brightly lit mining hub where the fires of iron forges burned all night. However, upon arrival, they find a dark, windy, and dilapidated ruin. He questions if his map is wrong, but she points to a battered town sign confirming their location. She explains that until very recently, the town thrived by producing weapons from iron mined out of monsters, but now all traces of that prosperity are gone. He realizes this world does not perfectly match his game knowledge as he surveys the dusty, ruined streets. Wandering through the desolation, he wonders if there is truly a reason for him to be in such an abandoned place. Spotting a single open building, she suggests they step inside to look for clues. They walk in to find a fully stocked armory. The massive, impressive inventory completely contrasts with the ruined town outside, leaving him excited to browse. She points out that despite his powerful abilities, he needs to replace his unusual, out-of-place clothing with proper gear. Their conversation is interrupted by a man smoking nearby. Surprised to see visitors, he apologizes for the state of things, explaining that no one comes to buy anything anymore. When she asks if he is in charge of the inventory, he solemnly agrees, but admits he barely considers himself a businessman ever since a mysterious rampage completely destroyed the town. Hearing the tragic history of the town, Satoru realizes this monster is the cause of the ruin. Extinguishing his cigarette, the man explains that a labor robot suddenly malfunctioned one day. It transformed into a massive boss monster deep inside the mine and began attacking people. The tragedy robbed the locals of their jobs and dreams, forcing most to abandon their homes. When Messiah asks why he stays, he admits he simply cannot bring himself to leave the town behind. Though he complains about the burden, Satoru clenches his fist and asks if the mine is still accessible, declaring his intention to defeat the monster. The man reacts with shock, doubting him because of his highly unusual clothing. Reflecting on his past, Satoru remembers that his old video game was merely an open world without a set story, where players blindly leveled up and challenged stronger foes. However, in this new reality, he finally has a chance to act for the sake of others. Remembering his late colleague, Yamada, he resolves to fulfill his reincarnated role and save someone, ensuring he never lives with that kind of agonizing regret again. His heartfelt, serious declaration completely amazes both Messiah and the man. Following the provided directions, the two navigate their way to the entrance of the coal mine dungeon. Inside, Satoru effortlessly takes care of the small enemies that block their path. She points out how completely indifferent he acts about his rapidly rising level. He brushes the compliment off, crediting his automated abilities for the easy progress. She smiles, calling him deeply mysterious for constantly complaining while still going out of his way to help her and the town. She playfully admits that she is entirely useless in combat and can only provide support, leaving him completely responsible for her safety. He sighs at her immediate, shameless admission of weakness. Suddenly, a strange metallic clanking echoes from deeper inside the dark tunnels. Expecting to encounter the dangerous boss monster, they carefully approach the source of the noise. Instead of a fearsome beast, they discover an unfamiliar figure resting on the ground, holding a wooden staff. Noticing the unfamiliar figure, Messiah questions her presence in the dark cave. Intimidated, the stranger nervously hides behind Satoru. Utterly confused by the situation, he casually stands there, prompting his companion to ask why he is acting so unusually calm. Once the stranger finally settles down, she introduces herself as Reese. Satoru and Messiah quickly share their names in return. Reese explains that her extreme shyness and subsequent exile from her village forced her to use the desolate cave as a hideout. Despite her sad circumstances, she fondly remembers the kindness the people of Jarvis showed her. Because of their warmth, she desperately wishes to see the town saved. Recalling childhood tales, she admits she has been praying in the cave, hoping a legendary saint will miraculously appear to rescue everyone. Listening to her earnest hopes, Satoru decides it is much more reliable to handle the problem themselves. He firmly declares that their primary objective is to defeat the monster occupying the mine. Shocked but thrilled by his determination, she offers to guide them to the boss's location, though she proudly admits her lack of magic makes her completely useless in a fight. He sighs at her shamelessly honest confession. Suddenly, Messiah recoils in fear. A guide is no longer necessary, as the colossal labor robot responsible for destroying the town appears directly in front of them. He is completely caught off guard by its immense size, having expected a much smaller machine. The massive robot instantly swings its drill-equipped arm. His auto skill immediately activates, pushing the mechanical beast back and keeping everyone safe from the impact. However, he quickly realizes that at his current level, his automated abilities can only deflect and dodge the heavy blows. Seeing him struggle to find an opening, Messiah casts an auxiliary skill called Orcus, temporarily tripling the power of his auto skill. Feeling a warm, comforting surge of energy, he launches a counterattack, but the robot's incredibly thick armor completely absorbs the strike. As the relentless attacks continue, Reese notices a weakness and advises him to strike directly underneath the machine where the armor is thinnest. Fearing for his safety, Messiah warns that diving under the enemy's feet makes him an easy target. However, he refuses to hesitate. Thanks to the physical boost from his recent rapid level-ups, he swiftly dashes forward and effortlessly slides underneath the towering robot. He strikes the weak point with perfect precision. The machine detects a critical anomaly and immediately shuts down permanently. Standing before the defeated boss, he finally understands the true power of relying on allies. Overwhelmed with relief, Reese bursts into tears and thanks him profusely. He modestly tries to calm her down, reminding her that her tactical advice made the victory possible. Messiah praises his heroic actions, and the genuine appreciation causes him to blush. Meanwhile, far away in the flower capital of Frisia, an unknown figure stands inside a church, praying fervently. Fearing the impending destruction of the world, this mysterious person desperately hopes to locate a certain someone before it is too late. Stepping out of the mine, Messiah notices that Satoru is injured. He brushes it off as a mere scratch, realizing that the adrenaline of battle temporarily masked the pain. Assuming she can use divine powers, he asks her to heal him, but she quickly admits she is not omnipotent. Overhearing this, Reese offers to help. Remembering his game knowledge, he assumes she possesses powerful recovery magic. Instead, she simply uses her staff to grind some medicinal herbs into a paste and instructs him to apply it to the wound. As he bandages his hand, he expresses his disappointment over the lack of actual magic. She explains that despite having a massive amount of mana, she cannot cast spells at all. She clarifies that her abilities are strictly limited to identifying plants and performing basic cleaning tasks. This makes him realize once again that this new world operates differently than his old game. Thanking her anyway, he suggests they head back to town. On their way back, they encounter someone gathering wild plants. Satoru approaches to ask what he is doing in such a dangerous area. Startled, the stranger jumps into his foraging basket in fear. Assuming they are malicious ghosts from the mine, he delivers a surprisingly painful punch to Satoru to defend himself. After clearing up the misunderstanding, he introduces himself as Yuki. He apologizes for the attack and expresses sheer amazement that anyone could survive going inside the dangerous mine. When asked why he is foraging in such a risky location, Yuki explains that he is gathering food for his hungry little sister because they have absolutely nothing to eat at home. Examining his basket, Reese spots a specific plant called a Kirino flower and quickly warns him that it is highly poisonous. Even with the boss monster defeated, Satoru realizes the people of Jarvis remain in danger of starvation and wonders what else he can do to help them. Suddenly, his body flashes with another system notification. Surprised by the rapid progression, he assumes defeating the massive robot granted him an enormous amount of experience points. Messiah notices the glow and asks about the sudden level up. He grins and explains that he acquired a new ability called Blessing of Shino, which automatically promotes crop growth. The revelation shocks both her and Reese. Messiah begins to sniffle, acting slightly disappointed that his brand new power is a farming skill rather than a powerful combat ability. However, Reese finds the ability absolutely amazing. Realizing this can solve the town's food crisis, she enthusiastically hugs him. Flustered by her sudden physical closeness, he teasingly tells Messiah not to be jealous before suggesting they finally head back to town. Upon returning, the group visits the largest potato field in Jarvis, which is completely barren and cracked. The man from the armory meets them there, expressing sheer disbelief at their request for a large farming plot. He praises Satoru as a true savior for destroying the robot and is amazed by his continued efforts to restore the town. Looking at the desolate dirt, Reese doubts that anything can survive in such terrible conditions. Acknowledging the dead soil, Satoru remains completely confident in his new ability. He extends his hand, emitting a warm glow that summons a swirling breeze across the field. As the magical wind clears, green sprouts burst from the cracked earth, instantly covering the entire massive plot with healthy, vibrant potato plants. Observing the newly softened soil, Satoru decides his work is complete. Messiah praises the surprisingly effective ability and eagerly suggests they inform the remaining townsfolk. The man from the armory watches in utter disbelief, struggling to accept the miracle before his eyes. Satoru assures him the vibrant crops are real and expresses his hope that the harvest will finally bring the displaced residents back to Jarvis. Watching the young hero, the man recalls a painful memory. Sometime prior, his own son argued that staying in the occupied town was pointless, noting that forging weapons was useless without anyone left to wield them. Despite the man's desperate plea to keep their forge burning for the next generation, his son apologized and abandoned the town. Following that departure, the population steadily dwindled until the once bustling streets fell completely silent. Now looking at Satoru, the man finally feels a genuine sense of hope breaking through his despair, much like the fresh sprouts bursting from the soil. Incredibly, the potatoes grow large enough to be harvested in just a single day. The townspeople quickly gather to collect the massive bounty, leaving Satoru amazed at the unbelievable speed of his own ability. Yuki excitedly approaches, proudly showing off his large haul, and thanking Satoru for ensuring his younger sister can finally eat her fill. His little sister also steps forward to express her heartfelt gratitude. Humbly deflecting the praise, Satoru credits their collective teamwork and highlights how much Reese constantly worried about the town's survival. Hearing this, the little sister sincerely thanks Reese, causing her to become deeply emotional. Nearby, Messiah joyfully pulls potatoes from the dirt, eagerly showing off her progress. Watching her have so much fun, Satoru thinks to himself that she looks like an entirely normal person rather than a divine being. He approaches to compliment her hard work but points out a smudge of dirt on her nose. She attempts to wipe it away but completely misses the spot. Leaning in close, she playfully insists that he clean it off for her. He awkwardly removes the dirt using his elbow, prompting her to bewilderedly question his incredibly strange method. Yuki calls out to Messiah, excitedly pointing out the abundance of potatoes they can dig up. As she turns to look, Satoru finds himself momentarily mesmerized by her flawless features, admitting to himself that he has absolutely no resistance against beautiful women. While helping with the harvest, he casually mentions that eating only steamed potatoes will eventually get boring, but he feels far too lazy to actually cook them properly. Suddenly, the mysterious figure from the church appears right behind him. She approaches closely and reveals that she possesses a rare cooking skill, offering to prepare absolutely anything he requests. Turning around, he is instantly struck by her incredible beauty. He casually requests potato chips. Readily understanding the snack, she holds a bowl full of raw potatoes. The bowl glows with magical energy, and perfectly cooked potato chips instantly appear inside. He watches in absolute amazement. Yuki and his sister eagerly surround the food. She invites everyone to help themselves, and they excitedly begin eating the delicious treat. She hands a portion to Satoru as well. He gratefully accepts them, thrilled to finally eat his favorite convenience store snack again in this new world. She expresses her joy that he enjoys the food, revealing that she traveled all this way specifically to meet him. As he processes this, she gravely warns him that he must stay away from Messiah or else he will die. The sudden, dark threat leaves him completely shocked. Confused by the sudden death threat, Satoru tries to understand the situation. The mysterious arrival asks if Messiah introduced herself as a goddess. When he confirms this, she drops a massive bombshell. She is a true saint, and she claims Messiah is actually a grim reaper plotting to lead him to his doom. Later, as they travel inside the moving structure, Reese marvels at the bizarre, mobile house. The stranger formally introduces herself to the group as Fortuna, a saint from the city of Frisia. Awestruck to meet a legendary figure, Reese immediately begs her to save Jarvis. Fortuna explains that she received a divine revelation instructing her to guide the world's true savior, explicitly identifying Satoru as that chosen hero. She then delves into the dark history of their world. Hundreds of millions of years ago, three gods, Arcturus, Baton, Caton, and Fortune, created a peaceful paradise. However, this peace was shattered by the demon lord of death, Zoltaxian. He unleashed a mysterious curse of death that drives monsters into violent frenzies and slowly drains humans of their will to live until they perish, revealing that her own family is bedridden from this very curse. Fortuna states that he is their only hope. Hearing this, he wonders if she realizes he was summoned from an entirely different world. However, since both women mentioned his specific role, he notes that their stories do not completely contradict each other. Believing Messiah is a dangerous Grim Reaper, Fortuna insists on taking over his guidance to protect him, urging him to travel to Frieza with her. Breaking her silence, Messiah pleads with him to trust her. Though she refuses to explain everything, she fiercely promises to protect him with her life. The tense standoff quickly devolves into a comedic squabble. Messiah argues that the saint cannot handle his extreme laziness, loudly exposing his embarrassing habits like skipping baths and refusing to cook. Highly embarrassed, he tries to quiet them down, but both women ignore him and demand he choose between them immediately. As tensions boil over and they prepare to resolve the issue with force, he nervously realizes that this supposedly peaceful saint might actually be a fierce combatant. The tense standoff shatters as Fortuna attacks. Messiah quickly uses her construction skill to form a sturdy chair, effortlessly blocking the strike. Satoru marvels at the clever defensive use of her building abilities. Justifying her harsh methods, Messiah claims that true growth requires pushing people past their limits, stating that Satoru must level up quickly before time runs out. Taking this ruthless philosophy as absolute proof of her Grim Reaper nature, Fortuna intensifies her assault. A destructive brawl breaks out between the two women, violently shaking the mobile house. Panicking, Reese warns that the structure is going to collapse. Annoyed by the chaos, Satoru steps in to forcefully break up the fight, but he accidentally delivers a massive final blow that completely wrecks the entire building. As morning arrives, the confused villagers gather around the ruined wreckage to see what happened. Satoru sternly scolds Messiah and Fortuna for destroying their shelter, though Reese quietly mutters that he was actually the one who delivered the finishing blow. The anger quickly fades as Fortuna breaks down in tears. She sincerely apologizes for letting her selfish desires consume her and feels she has completely failed as a saint. Desperate to save her cursed family, she begs Satoru to travel to Frisia to meet Mictron, a researcher investigating the curse of death. Despite not knowing this investigator, Satoru deeply sympathizes with her profound desire to protect her loved ones. The man from the armory suddenly interrupts the emotional moment, placing a large package on the ground. Opening it, he reveals a brand new set of clothes, a sword, and a shield. Noting the hero's bizarre outfit and lack of weapons, he offers the expensive gear as a token of absolute gratitude for saving Jarvis. Satoru becomes emotional, but hesitates to accept such a valuable gift. Messiah gently encourages him to accept the items and stand tall, reminding him that he is already acting as the town's true savior. Looking around at the happy faces of the villagers, he finally embraces his role and accepts the gear. The next day, Satoru stands ready in his sharp new attire, receiving compliments on the perfect fit. Yuki rushes forward and hugs him, tearfully begging him to stay in the town where it is safe. Gently turning him down, Satoru expresses his gratitude but explains that he wants to keep traveling so he can help anyone else who might be in trouble. As the group prepares to depart, Messiah and Fortuna instantly resume their jealous bickering over who gets the official right to guide him. Reese exasperatedly tells them to stop pouting as the lively group finally sets off toward the flower city of Frisia. During their journey, the group rests at an inn. Curious about their destination, Reese notes that she has never actually visited the nearby capital. Fortuna explains that Frisia is one of the 17 Holy Lands, a vibrant city originally founded by the god King Arcturus that becomes incredibly crowded during its famous festivals. Meanwhile, Satoru remains sound asleep, prompting Reese to ask when he will finally wake up. Messiah simply sighs, reminding her that he sleeps constantly. Eventually, they arrive at the bustling flower capital of Frisia. Taking in the lively atmosphere, Satoru marvels at the beautiful scenery, noting what a stark contrast it is to the ruined state of Jarvis. When he asks Reese if this is her first time seeing it, Messiah flatly points out that they already discussed this topic while he was asleep. Fortuna eagerly suggests they head straight to the local guild, expecting Mictron to be back from his investigation. Noticing her unusually high energy, Satoru points out how happy she looks. Reese teasingly suggests that Mictron must be a very special person to her. When Satoru reacts to this romantic gossip with complete indifference, Reese pivots and accuses him and Messiah of secretly having a special relationship since they live together. Both instantly and vehemently deny the accusation, with Messiah firmly stating that someone so incredibly lazy is definitely not her type. Arriving at the guild, the group asks a staff member for information, but they receive alarming news. Mictron entered the underwater ruins 7 days ago to investigate the curse of death and remains missing. Furthermore, dangerous monsters have recently been spotted in the area, suggesting he urgently needs a rescue team. Fortuna goes into denial, insisting that someone as strong as him could not possibly be in danger. Realizing that curing the curse of death is the only way to save her bedridden family, Satoru decides they cannot afford to sit around and wait for his return. Messiah agrees, confidently promising to protect him during the dangerous mission. Stating that it is faster to just retrieve the investigator themselves, Satoru declares that they are leaving immediately. Overwhelmed by their willingness to brave a monster-infested ruin for her sake, Fortuna falls silent. She warns him of the extreme danger, but ultimately bows deeply and begs for his strength. Wasting no time, the party travels to the underwater ruins. As they descend the long, damp staircases, Satoru openly questions why a temple holding clues about the deadly curse is uniquely built on the water's surface and extends deep below it. As the group descends into the ruins, Fortuna admits she lacks details about the curse and is anxiously awaiting the investigation results. She explains that the deepest parts of the temple are completely flooded due to extreme deterioration, forcing Mictron to investigate alone using his special abilities. When Messiah asks about his exact identity, Fortuna reveals he is a forbidden curse investigator attached to the Ministry of Sacred Affairs, a specialized role that handles incurable, deadly afflictions. She then completely shocks everyone by revealing that Mictron is actually her older brother, and they are the only 2 members of their family who have avoided the curse so far. Hearing this, Reese realizes she incorrectly assumed he was her boyfriend, while Messiah bluntly suggests that the saint has a brother complex. Worried for her safety, Satoru gently reminds Reese that she is completely non-combatant and could have stayed behind. She insists she can be helpful, but immediately slips and falls face-first into the flooded corridor. Helping her up, he playfully thanks her for physically pointing out the dangerous water. Suddenly, a massive octopus-like tentacle bursts from the water, grabs Reese by the leg, and aggressively drags her underneath the surface. Panic sets in as Fortuna identifies the creature as a monster. Desperate to chase after her, Satoru realizes the deep water prevents him from moving forward. Instantly, Messiah casts a water-repelling spell, magically parting the water around him. She smugly reminds him that he desperately needs her powers, much to the annoyance of a jealous Fortuna. Now able to move freely, Satoru charges forward. He recognizes the enormous, tentacled beast wrapping around Reese as a dangerous devil creature from his old games. Struggling to breathe, Reese desperately warns them about the monster's incredible speed. The beast furiously whips its tentacles at the group, but Satoru successfully deflects the rapid strikes using his automated defenses. However, he quickly realizes the endless barrage of tentacles prevents him from getting close enough to strike the main body. Seeing the struggle, Messiah casts a powerful support skill directly onto Fortuna. Though Fortuna is confused by the unexpected help, Messiah urges her to use her superhuman strength to save her brother and take down the beast. Reluctantly accepting help from a supposed Grim Reaper, Fortuna agrees to deliver the final blow and asks Satoru to buy her an opening. Seizing the opportunity, Fortuna dashes forward and unleashes a devastating martial arts kick directly into the monster's face, violently launching the beast far away. With the monster seemingly defeated, Reese manages to escape its grasp. Satoru celebrates the quick victory, while Messiah checks to ensure Reese is unhurt. Satoru casually mentions the fight was surprisingly easy, prompting Messiah to point out how much he actually struggled. Despite her harsh tone, she quietly admits that they only succeeded because of the saint's powerful attack, prompting Satoru to tease her for finally being honest. Relieved, the group prepares to continue searching for the missing investigator. However, the battle is not truly over. The battered octopus monster suddenly launches a desperate high-speed tentacle strike aimed directly at Satoru's blind spot. Noticing the danger, Messiah throws herself between them, taking the full, devastating impact of the attack to protect him. She instantly collapses to the ground as the massive monster looms over them once again. The monster quickly approaches Messiah. Holding her unconscious body, Satoru desperately calls her name, wondering why she suddenly protected him and why his automated skills completely failed to activate. He blames his own carelessness for her terrible state. The merciless monster, now identified as a Buster Devil Kraken, extends its tentacles for a final strike. However, before the lethal blow can land, a mysterious figure suddenly intervenes. The man effortlessly blocks the attack and subdues the massive beast in a single strike. As the stranger turns around to ask if they are unharmed, Satoru marvels at their sudden savior. Fortuna immediately cries out, recognizing the man as her brother. Realizing this is the missing investigator, Reese watches as Fortuna tightly hugs him in relief. He is surprised to see his sister in such a dangerous place, but she quickly urges him to heal the injured Messiah. Mictron immediately casts a glorious healing spell. Watching her complexion steadily improve, Satoru sincerely thanks him. Mictron humbly advises them to let her rest. Amazed that this man possesses the sheer strength to defeat a kraken in one hit alongside powerful recovery magic, Satoru asks about his true identity. Mictron nervously downplays his abilities. Satoru sighs, noting that his standard for ordinary is severely skewed since his entire party currently consists of divine beings, reapers, and saints. Mictran asks if he is the prophesied savior. Feeling awkward about the grand title, he simply introduces himself as Satoru. Fortuna proudly praises him, explaining that he braved the ruins out of deep concern for her brother's safety, proving himself as a true hero. Hearing her enthusiastic praise, Mictron's protective demeanor instantly darkens. Misinterpreting their bond, the overprotective brother suddenly challenges Satoru Shie to a duel for his sister's hand in marriage. Flustered, Satoru completely denies any romantic involvement. Adding fuel to the fire, Reese joyfully points out that he already has Messiah, excitedly declaring the situation a love triangle. When Messiah suddenly begins to stir, Reese jokingly wonders if her own involvement would turn the chaos into a love square. Mictron fiercely warns him against cheating, while Fortuna desperately tries to clear his name. Amidst the chaotic shouting, Messiah fully regains consciousness, groggily asking why everyone is being so incredibly loud. Later, the group gathers safely at a local inn for drinks. Messiah confirms the identity of her healer and thanks Mictron for saving her. When Satoru asks if the dangerous ruins held any actual clues, Mictron shares his findings. He explains that historical records indicate the underwater temple was originally built to manage the power of the Reapers. However, the delicate balance between life and death has completely collapsed, pushing the world toward imminent destruction. He notes that the curse of death is rapidly strengthening, evidenced by the monster evolving into a buster devil kraken, and causing goddesses to slowly transform into Reapers. Deep inside the ruins, he discovered an ancient stone monument dating perfectly back to the creation period of the gods at Baton Kaiton. Thrilled by the archaeological find, he excitedly explains that the monument contains the exact mechanism for managing Reapers. Fortuna sighs affectionately, explaining that her brother is a massive history nerd who completely loses awareness of his surroundings when absorbed in research. Amidst the exposition, Satoru notices something concerning and quietly calls out to Messiah. Overwhelmed by the situation, Messiah abruptly apologizes and steps outside to get some fresh air. Realizing her earlier harshness, Fortuna asks Satoru to check on her. She admits she now understands that her former rival is not evil, but simply another tragic victim struggling to accept her dark transformation caused by the curse of death. Satoru follows her outside and finds her standing quietly under the night sky. Approaching her, he fondly notes that she is standing exactly as she was when they first met. She offers a weak smile and solemnly confesses that she did not realize her transformation had already begun back then. Now, she no longer feels normal emotions like anger or sadness. Instead, a cold, empty sensation fills her chest, and a dark mist seems to block her desires to protect others. She realizes this chilling numbness is what it truly means to become a Grim Reaper. He listens silently before bluntly stating that she never gave off a divine vibe from the very beginning anyway. Offended, she demands an explanation. He playfully teases her for being bossy, prone to crying on the ground, and completely lacking any majestic aura. Flustered, she scolds him for being so brutally honest. Smiling gently, he reassures her that when she selflessly shielded him from the monster's attack, she truly looked like the greatest person in the world to him. Deeply moved by his words, she blushes and humbly claims she only did what was natural, insisting that as the world's savior, he is simply not allowed to die. Opening up about her past, she explains that before coming to the lower world, she lived in the celestial realm serving one of the three creator gods. She recalls a specific memory with a fellow divine worker named Arena. Back then, Arena mentioned a rumor that anyone losing control of their powers would be cast down as a Grim Reaper. At the time, Messiah dismissed the idea as a total myth, jokingly imagining a Reaper as someone carrying a giant scythe with a black cat on their shoulder. However, weeks later, Arena began radiating a dark energy and acting strangely. Despite denying that anything was wrong, she eventually transformed into a monster and had to be sealed away. Following that tragedy, Messiah was commanded to guide the prophesied savior to halt the curse of death. She tearfully admits she is absolutely terrified of suffering the same fate as her friend, but is even more determined to prevent anyone else from enduring that horrifying transformation. Relating to her trauma, Satoru compares her pain to the tragic loss of his own coworker. He promises to help the person right in front of him, believing that doing so will ultimately lead to saving the entire world. She notes that they both carry the exact same kind of pain, but worries that her impending transformation will eventually make her a burden. Apologizing for making her shoulder such heavy fears alone, he confidently declares that his level has increased significantly and promises to never be careless again. He fiercely urges her to believe in him. Finding her courage, she jokes that if she truly becomes an evil reaper and pushes him off a cliff, he is not allowed to hate her. He casually retorts that if she does, he will simply drag her down with him. She immediately complains that he was supposed to say something cool and heroic instead, completely ruining the serious mood. Meanwhile, back inside the inn, Fortuna asks her brother if his recent discovery is actually real. Mictran firmly confirms that after fully deciphering the ancient stone tablet, he finally understands the exact method to save the world from the curse of death. The narrative shifts to a flashback from Messiah's past in the celestial realm. Fortuna explains that the upcoming Saints Festival in Frisia grants the sacred title of saint to those who pass its grueling trials. Noting that even Irina succumbed to the dark transformation, she stresses that only a true saint can oppose the Grim Reapers. Opening the goddess Reincarnation book, she explains that summoning a soul using its magic yields a high chance of creating a saint, revealing she has already chosen Satoru for the task. Another divine worker questions the choice, pointing out that he spends his days lazily playing video games. However, Fortuna insists he carries a deep, important karma. Touching the magical book, Messiah experiences his tragic memories flowing directly into her mind, bringing her to tears. Noticing her profound empathy, Fortuna officially tasks her with guiding him. Back in the present, the citizens of Frisia eagerly prepare for the upcoming festival. Inside the inn, Satoru processes the revelation that he was specifically summoned to participate in the festival and become a saint. Frustrated, he complains that he was perfectly happy playing games and never wanted the massive burden of saving another world. Messiah advises him to safely and steadily raise his level, but Fortuna argues that taking their time is far too slow. Overwhelmed by their grand destinies, Reese begins to cry, comparing their dazzling roles to her sad life as a village outcast. Satoru gently tries to cheer her up. Mictron solemnly explains the terrifying truth uncovered in the ruins. The ancient mechanism suppressing the Reaper's power will completely fail in just a few years. Once it breaks, monsters will become uncontrollably frenzied, exactly like the Kraken they fought, and all remaining goddesses will inevitably transform into Reapers. He then leads the group down the hall and slowly opens a door to a dark room containing 2 occupied beds. Satoru immediately realizes the unconscious patients are the siblings' parents. Fortuna sorrowfully explains that they have been bedridden by the curse of death for almost a year, only kept alive by her brother's continuous healing magic. Mictran reveals that breaking the curse requires defeating 3 specific, powerful enemies, a task absolutely impossible at Satoru's current level. Staring at his shaking hands, Satoru accepts that he must participate in the festival to gain the necessary strength. Smiling, Mictron assures him that achieving the title will finally make him the true savior. With the festival only a month away, Fortuna proposes an intense special training regimen. Reese suggests traveling near her former village, noting it features a dangerous area frequently used by warriors to level up quickly. Fortuna eagerly agrees, but Messiah angrily objects. She argues that he is not ready for such danger and must level up slowly. Stunned by her overprotective outburst, the group falls silent until Reese and Fortuna desperately remind her that they are completely out of time to save the dying parents. The emotional argument continues as Messiah stubbornly declares she refuses to let Satoru endure the pain of losing someone ever again. Amidst the heavy commotion, Mictron claps his hands to grab everyone's attention. Before tensions can rise any further, he requests to see Satoru's true strength in a spar. The group relocates to a massive arena on the outskirts of the town. Amazed by the grand scale of the facility, Satoru learns from Mictron that this is the exact location where official saint ceremonies are held, an event that only happens once every decade. Hearing this, Messiah defensively claims she wants to use those entire 10 years to train him safely. Mictron questions Satoru's motivation, pointing out that as an otherworldly visitor, he gains absolutely nothing from saving their realm. Before he can respond, Fortuna officially signals the start of the duel. Satoru nervously braces himself as Mictron instantly lunges forward with terrifying speed. His automated defenses immediately trigger, casting Purgatory to block the lightning-fast strike. The sheer power of the clash shocks the onlookers. Fortuna worries that her brother's holy elemental magic, Millennium, is far too merciless for a simple test of strength. while Reese fears Satoru will get seriously injured just trying to defend himself. The relentless assault continues. Satoru desperately dodges the incoming attacks, realizing that he is barely buying enough time to escape. He is astounded by his opponent's seemingly bottomless magical reserves and his ability to launch devastating spells back-to-back. Taunting him, Mictron declares he cannot entrust his sister's safety to someone so weak. Hearing this, Messiah calls out the siblings for having a mutual complex over each other, prompting Fortuna to beg her to stop teasing them, while Reese cheerfully notes that it is nice they all get along so well. Suddenly, a massive magical blast engulfs the arena. As the smoke clears, Satoru is left covered in brutal wounds. Believing he stands no chance, he reflects on his chaotic journey. He admits to his opponent that he has constantly felt swept along by the current, unilaterally declared a savior, and dragged around by others without much say. However, he also realizes that whenever it came down to a battle, he was always the one who actively chose to fight. He thinks fondly of his allies, Reese working hard despite her lack of magic, Fortuna being incredibly reliable in times of need, and the soft-hearted Messiah always putting his well-being above her own. Mictron asks if he really intends to continue, advising him to recognize his own limits as Fortuna desperately cries out for her brother to stop the beating. Ignoring the pain, Satoru resolves his internal conflict. He admits that saving an entire world feels too massive to comprehend, but because it is the world his precious friends live in, he deeply desires to protect it. The air around him suddenly thickens with an intense, overwhelming magical pressure. Declaring his absolute determination to become a saint, a massive burst of energy erupts from his body, completely scorching the entire arena. Astounded by the unprecedented attack, Mictron is left completely speechless. Messiah eagerly rushes to Satoru's side, amazed by the unknown skill. Though he tries to act casual and tells her not to excitedly barge in, she sincerely compliments him, admitting that he is actually really cool sometimes. Satoru jokingly objects to Messiah's comment, claiming he is actually cool all the time. She laughs and playfully agrees, admitting she genuinely likes that confident trait about him. The unexpected affection causes him to blush. Reese suddenly interrupts the tender moment, teasingly claiming her antennas detect the scent of romance. Both of them immediately and defensively deny the accusation. Approaching the group, Mictran formally apologizes for testing him so harshly. He expresses his complete astonishment that the young hero managed to unleash such a devastating ability at the very last second. Satoru accepts the apology, openly admitting that he does not even know the name of his own new skill. Fortuna proudly reminds her brother that she always believed he was the destined savior. Whispering quietly to himself, Mictran reflects that rather than seeing a grand prophesied savior, he simply sees a dependable young man fighting fiercely to protect the people precious to him. Upon returning to the siblings' home, Satoru assists with treating their bedridden parents. Observing the magic interact, Mictran excitedly realizes that by combining his own glorious heal magic with the automated system abilities, a powerful auto-cure effect is activated. Although this solution is only a temporary fix for the curse of death, he sincerely expresses his gratitude, relieved that his parents will now continuously recover even when left unattended. With the immediate crisis stabilized, Messiah acknowledges that he has officially decided to participate in the upcoming festival trials. He confidently promises to undergo intense special training to grow even stronger so she will never have to worry about him again. She reluctantly accepts his decision. Suddenly, Reese enthusiastically raises her hand. Eager to finally take the lead and help him level up safely, she proudly offers to guide the party to her former home, the elf village of Avalon. The group finally arrives at the outskirts of the elf village of Avalon, having left Mictron behind at his home. When a boar-like monster suddenly charges at them, Satoru effortlessly defeats it. Acknowledging her exiled status, Reese explains she cannot actually enter the village, which is why they plan to level up in the surrounding dangerous forest instead. She notes that the area is a popular hidden training spot for strong elves. Messiah agrees with the practical plan, while Satoru nods in understanding. Concerned for her feelings, Fortuna asks if Reese will regret being so close to home without attempting to see her family. Before she can answer, a desperate shout interrupts them. An unfamiliar elf trips over a stone while fleeing from a pack of goblins. Noticing the immediate danger, Satoru activates his automated ability, Hidden Crevices, instantly taking down the monsters and saving the stranger. Grateful, the elf explains she was trying to level up but got overwhelmed, and praises his incredible strength. When Satoru asks if she is from Avalon, she notices Reese standing nearby and becomes highly emotional. Assuming it is a joyful reunion, Fortuna and Messiah express their happiness. However, Reese completely ruins the touching moment by awkwardly admitting she has absolutely no idea who this person is. Flustered, she lists off her actual childhood friends, including someone named Lukulu, trying to spark her own memory. The stranger quickly clarifies that she is actually Lukulu, explaining that it is completely natural for Reese not to recognize her because she used to be male. Shocked by the bizarre revelation, the group listens as Lukulu explains that she is not the only victim. A terrifying curse has forcibly gender-swapped everyone in Avalon. She reveals that the village is currently under the tyrannical control of an elf named Pora. 3 months ago, Pora arrived as a refugee seeking shelter. Out of sympathy, the villagers warmly welcomed her. Earning their trust by sharing her immense magical knowledge and expertise in medicinal herbs, Pora eventually secured a position working directly for the village chief, Belladonna. Hearing this, Reese freezes. Lukulu sadly confirms her worst fear. The chief is actually Reese's father. Astounded, Satoru realizes his exiled companion comes from an incredibly prestigious family. Lukulu continues the tragic story, explaining that Pora used her overwhelming magic to seize control, using the bizarre gender-swapping curse to completely break the villagers' will to fight. With the village in total chaos and the chief locked away in a dungeon, Lukulu desperately begs Satoru to use his incredible strength to save their home. Satoru immediately agrees to assist with the village's liberation. Messiah notes she expected that response, while Fortuna asks Reese if she is ready to help rescue her father. Reese remains silent, and when prompted again, she asks to be excused from the mission. The group watches as she walks away, and Messiah observes that Reese intends to join them only after finishing her conversation with Lukulu. Meanwhile, Reese vividly recalls the day of her exile. Her father had once scolded her, claiming she was a failure as the daughter of the village chief. He pointed out that despite years of magical training and tutoring, she could not even light a simple cooking flame. Disowning her, he cast her out of the village. Even though she loved her home and her father deeply, she eventually decided it was best to sever all ties. Lukulu holds her hand, apologizing for not being strong enough to intervene back then, but expresses genuine joy at their reunion. She promises to handle the internal village politics, while Reese prays for the safety of her friend's journey. Reese then remembers a happier time from her childhood. After falling from a tree, a young Lukulu comforted her, assuring her that she would eventually succeed if she kept practicing. He offered his hand, casting a protective spell her father had taught him, promising to always guard her from harm. Her father once interrupted their moment, roughly calling her home. Waking up from the memory, Reese tears up, desperately wishing to save her father despite his cruelty. She resolves to return to Lukulu and confront Pora alone, refusing to drag Satoru and the others into her family's mess just because they are busy leveling up. As she exits the inn, she is shocked to find Satoru, Fortuna, and Messiah waiting for her. Satoru nonchalantly tells her he knew she would show up. Messiah sighs, joking that she is tired of waiting. Overwhelmed and confused, Reese asks why they are there. Satoru smiles, calls their presence a casual night stroll, and declares it is finally time to pay a visit to Pora's house. The group successfully infiltrates the chief's mansion in Avalon, immediately discovering the on-duty guards lying completely unconscious on the floor. Reese nervously asks. Satoru nonchalantly explains that the guards bothered them during their stroll, so he simply knocked them out with the flat of his blade, knowing they were only following Pora's orders out of fear. Internally, he notes that the guards were surprisingly weak, having expected the elves to wield formidable magic. Messiah scolds him for being so reckless, though she and Fortuna acknowledge his impressive, growing mastery over his skills. Reese then points out that the Great Hall lies just ahead, leading directly to her father's bedroom where Pora is likely hiding. Suddenly, a man appears behind them, casually noting the noise and immediately recognizing the chief's daughter. Satoru wonders how he knows Reese, but the man quickly introduces himself as Zelfina, Pora's older brother. Fortuna fiercely demands to know why he is not stopping his sister's tyrannical actions. Going on a bizarre tangent, she passionately claims that her own kind and cool brother would never forgive her for such evil deeds and would lecture her extensively out of pure love. Messiah sighs and tells Zelfina to completely ignore the saint's broken, brother-obsessed rambling. Closing his eyes, Zelfina coldly states that he has been waiting for Reese. He suddenly draws his bow and fires a deadly shot directly at her. Satoru shouts in alarm and frantically checks to see if she is hurt. Miraculously, the arrow only grazes her hair and earring, prompting the archer to calmly acknowledge his miss. Analyzing the blistering attack, Satoru realizes it was no ordinary shot, deducing that Zelfina is using wind magic to drastically amplify the arrow's speed and power. Fortuna confirms this terrifying threat, sensing a massive magical aura radiating from him. Recovering from the shock, Reese desperately demands to know why he is attacking the village and hurting her father, especially after the people of Avalon warmly took his sister in. Zelfina reveals a dark, tragic truth. Their home village of Camoran was completely destroyed precisely because of Avalon. He recounts a massive monster stampede that occurred 3 years ago. While Reese proudly claims her people worked together to drive the beasts away, Zafina furiously corrects her. He accuses Avalon of intentionally letting the monsters escape toward Kamaran, using their neighboring village as a cruel scapegoat to minimize their own casualties. Hearing about the frenzy, Satoru silently wonders if the curse of death was responsible for the initial stampede. Looking at the shocked group, Zelfina continues his grim explanation. Zelfina coldly states that Avalon merely diverted the fatal stampede to stay safe. He bitterly explains his desire to make them lose their normal lives and everything they hold dear, just as his people did. Deciding he has talked enough, he prepares another magically enhanced arrow. Suddenly, a brilliant light envelopes Reese as pure magical energy violently revolves around her. Satoru loudly questions the strange phenomenon. Astounded, Fortuna notes that this is the first time she has ever sensed such an immense magical aura from her. Zelfina watches in disbelief, muttering that she was supposedly completely incapable of using magic. Declaring his grudge to be entirely misplaced, Reese fiercely defends her precious family and people. However, the overwhelming surge of energy proves too much for her physical form, and she immediately begins to collapse. Seeing the brief glimpse of her power fade, Zelfina smugly threatens to beat them half to death before dragging her back to Pora. He fires his arrow directly at Reese. Just in time, Satoru intercepts the attack, mocking Zelfina for being too distracted. His automated skills instantly activate, unleashing Purgatory. A massive fiery blast engulfs the corridor, violently throwing Zelfina far away. Satoru calmly explains that he simply ignited the air trapped by the enemy's wind magic, though he admits he held back. Watching the display of power, Messiah marvels at how completely different he is from the weak boy she first met. As Satoru urges the group forward, the defeated Zelfina weakly apologizes to Pora for his failure. Advancing to the innermost bedroom, the group discovers Pora sitting casually on the bed. She mockingly scolds them for being rude enough to interrupt her so late at night. When Satoru confirms her identity, she ignores his hostility, playfully noting his cool demeanor and acknowledging the immense potential of the entire party. Suddenly, Pora unleashes her bizarre curse, instantly gender-swapping the entire group. Fortuna, Reese, and Messiah are transformed into males, while Satoru is forcefully changed into a female. Shocked by the sudden physical alteration, Messiah angrily realizes this is the exact ability Lukulu warned them about. Pora laughs gleefully, explaining her desire to turn everything they were born with upside down. She claims that regardless of magical strength or status, people can never truly understand certain struggles until they are forcefully placed in a completely different position. Messiah immediately scolds her for trying to make the twisted curse sound deep and philosophical. Complaining that he cannot possibly fight in a female body, Satoru demands to be changed back. Fortuna teasingly accuses him of enjoying the new form for a split second, which he vehemently denies. Attempting to resolve the situation with force, he tries to cast Purgatory, but absolutely nothing happens. Confused, Messiah urges hack, but he panics upon realizing his skills are completely locked. Pora smugly explains that after a gender swap, it takes a significant amount of time for a person's physical strength and magical pathways to adapt to the new body. Reese finally understands how her powerful father and the entire village were rendered so completely helpless. Turning her attention to her true target, Pora reveals that an enormous amount of magic power has always been sleeping inside Reese. Satoru connects the dots, recalling the brilliant magical aura from the corridor and Zelfina's earlier slip that his attack was not about revenge, but rather capturing Reese. He realizes Pora's terrifying true goal. Reese's latent magic never adapted to her original body, rendering her magicless her entire life. By forcefully swapping her gender, Pora intentionally forced the new physical body to adapt to and awaken that dormant power for her own use. Realizing the trap, Satoru desperately shouts for Reese to run. However, the overwhelming guilt of realizing her own hidden power caused the village's downfall, and her father's imprisonment shatters her emotional restraint. Her new body begins to shine blindingly bright as her latent magic fully erupts. Screaming that she will never forgive the tyrant, Reese unleashes her power, much to Pora's twisted, villainous delight. Reese unleashes a massive blinding blast of light directly at Pora. Satoru watches in absolute shock, while Fortuna marvels at the insane scale and power of the attack, stunned by the sheer volume of mana. Meanwhile, Reese's mind goes completely blank with rage. Unable to hold back the overflowing energy deep within her body, her magic instinctively flies toward her enemy. She recalls her father's cruel words about her being a worthless half-elf, suddenly realizing he must have known about this dormant power all along and wondering why he chose to exile her instead of explaining the truth. Messiah frantically warns that the magic is spiraling completely out of control. Satoru realizes her mana overflowed so suddenly that she has absolutely no idea how to handle it. comparing her lack of control to driving a speeding runaway vehicle, a reference that completely confuses Fortuna. Terrified by her own screaming body, Reese panics. Satoru urgently pulls her into a hug, begging her to calm down before she collapses the entire building. Realizing she is inadvertently hurting her friends, she manages to rein in her power, terrified she might accidentally kill Pora before getting any answers. However, as the dust settles, they discover Pora completely unscathed. Smirking, the villain thanks them for the feast, revealing a terrifying skill called Mana Absorption Soul Reaper that drains incoming magical energy to strengthen herself. As Reese wobbles on her feet from the drain, Pora gloats about uncovering hidden rumors of a prodigy with insane latent mana. She explains that Belladonna only exiled his daughter to keep her hidden, knowing that power-hungry individuals would eventually come hunting for that massive energy. Relishing the stolen mana, Pora revels in her newfound strength. Realizing her father's true protective intentions, Reese demands to know why Pora continues to make others miserable even after successfully taking her revenge on Avalon. Pora cynically counters that might makes right in this world, pointing out that Reese's life was ironically ruined by her own uncontrollable talent. She taunts that if Reese could actually wield her magic, she would still be living a happy, normal life. Refusing to break, Reese admits the past was painful, but boldly declares that her exile led her to meet her incredible new friends, Satoru, Messiah, and Fortuna. She thanks Pora for the ironic realization, stating that choosing to move forward in a rough situation is entirely up to the individual. Enraged by her optimism, Pora sneers that such words are easy for someone who has never truly been through hell. Vowing to make her watch her beloved friends die, she conjures a dense, lethal wind. With their skills still locked from the gender swap, Fortuna panics. However, Satoru quickly rallies Messiah, Fortuna, and Reese, urgently whispering a desperate counterattack plan. Dismissing their hidden schemes, Pora unleashes her attack. To her shock, the group starts violently hurling heavy tables and chairs at her. Messiah marvels at Fortuna's ability to lift such massive furniture. Utilizing the raw physical strength of her temporary male body, Fortuna charges forward with a fierce martial arts kick to distract the villain. Pora easily evades a sudden dagger strike from Satoru, mocking his clumsy sneak attack. Messiah scolds him for missing, but he frustratingly explains that fighting in a smaller female body has completely thrown off his reach and balance. Overconfident, Pora laughs at their pathetic physical attempts and boasts that her power has doubled from the absorbed mana. Preparing to finish them off, she suddenly realizes Reese is entirely missing from their formation. Appearing directly behind the villain, Reese raises her staff and repeats her promise to never forgive her. Pora turns around in absolute terror. She realizes the chaotic physical assault was merely a distraction to buy time for Reese to focus her scattered, uncontrollable magic into a single devastating point. Panicking, the villain knows her absorption skill cannot possibly process such a concentrated attack. Facing her defeat, Pora reflects on her lifelong struggle. Born with incredibly low mana, she furiously studied magical theory, control methods, and spell structures, believing that hard work and refined quality could overcome her lack of raw talent. Despite her desperate efforts to seize power for herself, she ultimately watched her village fall to ruin. Instead of unleashing the fatal blow, Reese gently places a hand on her enemy's shoulder, softly asking her to reverse the curse on the village. Staring at the breathtakingly beautiful and overwhelming magic, Pora finally surrenders, her lifelong envy giving way to defeat. With the tyrant subdued, a peaceful new morning dawns over Avalon, and everyone instantly reverts to their original genders. Satoru sighs in relief at his restored body, while Reese rejoices that her people are finally free. She sincerely thanks the group for their unwavering support, though Satoru humbly brushes off the praise. Lukulu, now back to his original male self, runs up to celebrate. Yoking around, he admits he wanted to see Reese's temporary male form, prompting her to playfully act haughty. When asked about the villain's fate, Lukulu points out that the village chief will decide her punishment. Belladonna approaches the group. Bowing deeply, he formally introduces himself and expresses his profound gratitude for saving their home. Satoru immediately deflects the praise, pointing directly at Reese. Facing his estranged daughter, the chief bows again and tearfully apologizes. He confesses that he exiled her because he feared her uncontrollable magic would bring disaster to her life, but admits that his misguided protection only caused her deep pain, calling himself a complete failure as a parent. Crying, Reese embraces her father. She admits she is still incredibly angry at him for the unexplained banishment and all the miserable magic training, but ultimately, she is just overwhelmingly happy that he is safe. Watching the emotional family reunion, Satoru smiles warmly. Meanwhile, back in Frisia, eager participants diligently grind levels and devise strategies for the upcoming Saints Festival. The grand battle of heroes is finally about to begin.
Here I am,